Hello, hello! Happy Monday! Welcome back for yet another Pep Talk. Good old post-employment podcast. So today, I was kind of scrambling my brain for what to talk about. Not that there's not a ton of things to talk about, but something that's kind of hit me a little bit recently is I want to talk about mental health and how to maintain it, how to keep it good, things you can do to improve your mental health, and what I mean, not what mental health is, but more so actual actionable things you are able to do and accomplish to keep your mental health positive, sane, keep yourself happy, and more than just happy, but satisfied and content. So I'm trying to think of what a good name for the episode would be. Mental health and how it works. Now, see, it's not how it works. It's mental health and how to improve it. I like that. Mental health and how to improve it. So yeah, we'll dive right into it. So, first thing you can do to improve your mental health is work silence into your day. Now, see, wasn't that nice? Now, actually, in all seriousness, this isn't the case for most of human history, but it's definitely the case for the last, 30 years of human history. Our minds are cluttered with constant stimuli in this modern era, where there's not a moment, with the exception of sleep, where we give our minds a rest. And go listen to my podcast about sleep if you want to hear more about that. But yeah, so we don't give our brains a rest, and we're always thinking, we're always entertaining ourselves. If you have a free moment, you're on your phone. If you're bored and you're waiting for something for more than 20 seconds, you've probably pulled out your phone and looked at it. If you're sitting on the toilet, you've probably pulled out your phone. If you are on the way to work, you're probably listening to the radio or a podcast like this, or music, or whatever else. And those things aren't necessarily bad. Those are actually very good. Those are good ways to learn, good ways to grow yourself, good ways to entertain yourself. But in moderation. And in a similar sense, you probably don't have silence in your life. Your life is constantly go, 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 do something. And if you're not doing something, you feel wrong. And one of the ways to combat that and to improve your mental health is to give your mind space to breathe, to give it time to slow down, to give it time to process, to not have to think about things, to not have to entertain itself. It's a mental break. It's a rest for your mind, and it helps delineate the busy times from the not busy times. It's not everything's busy. I can turn it off, I can turn it on. So yeah, silence is something that, I'm not making all this up either. This is stuff I've read that helps improve your mind and your mental health, your mood, doctor recommended stuff, as well as from personal experience. Some of this stuff is, and my mind works a bit differently than a lot of people, but it works similar to some. I have ADHD, so the stuff that helps my mind might not help yours. But I'm going to generalize and say the things that should help both minds first. So silence is one of those things. So find time for silence. Be quiet. Be still. And if you're a Christian, be still and know He is God, is how that passage goes. So I think it's a psalm, actually. I have to pull it out to know which one. But anyway, be still, be quiet, be calm, be silent. And sit in silence. Stand in silence. Do something in silence that isn't occupying your full focus. Like, there's some days, some mornings, some drive homes where I don't put on the radio. I don't record a podcast. I don't call anyone. And I am sitting here in my car for 20 minutes driving in complete silence. I mean, there's the noise of the road, and you hear that on this podcast. I'm not sorry about that. It keeps that background something going that we all need. at least people with ADHD, we all need some background sound, which I'll talk about that too. But yeah, silence helps. Find time in your day, every day, if possible, 15, 20 minutes, 10 minutes if you had to. Just have silence. Take out the earbuds, take out the headphones, don't talk to anyone. Just sit there. Enjoy the silence. And it's going to feel uncomfortable at first. It really will. For like the first maybe 4 or 5 times, you're going to feel like something's wrong. And then you're going to feel like, oh wait, this feels very right. It's very satisfying. So, enjoy your silence. Next up on the bill of things that should improve everyone's mental health, not just people like me. Sleep. Get sleep. I've talked about that at length in the last podcast, so probably don't have to talk about that much. But when you lack sleep, your anxieties build, your stress levels build, you're unable to focus on tasks, and that causes inefficiencies, which frustrate us. Just sleep. Get sleep. Prioritize sleep. Yeah, so sleep is good for your mental health. Next up, this is crucial. If you're an introvert or an extrovert, does not matter. Have people in your life. Period. Like, have someone, or not one person, but have people who exist in your life outside of yourself. You need people outside of yourself to maintain your mental health. If you are, and there's studies on this. I just watched a Mr. Beast video on this, actually, of Jimmy, Mr. Beast, put himself in an isolation chamber for 7 days. It has no social interaction, basically no stimulation. Everything's padded in a white room with constant lights on. There's nothing to do. He was going insane. They actually had to have a mental health doctor there on standby to help him, and to counsel his friends through it, to say, hey, we need to pull the plug soon, type stuff. Because mental health, is crucial. And the main thing that made him go nuts was his lack of social interaction, is what the psychologist was saying. I get psychology and psychiatry mixed up sometimes, but I believe this was a psychologist. The study of the mind. But yeah, so have people in your life besides yourself. And if you want to take it a step farther, do things for them. Live not for them in a simping way, but live your life in a way that it benefits yourself, but also benefits others. Don't live your life in a way at the expense of others. And you can do both. You can benefit yourself and benefit others like that. They're not mutually exclusive concepts. You can also do the inverse. You can live your life that sacrifices yourself and helps others, or that helps yourself and sacrifices others. But the best is when you're benefiting both. And of course, there's sacrifices to be made, but live your life with other people, and at times for other people. Get yourself out of your own head is the best way to put that. And also, other people will be a sounding board for you too. They will, if you have deep enough relationships, they will tell you when things are wrong, when you're going off the deep end. They will keep you in check if they love you and trust you, and you trust them. Yeah, so other people, get them in your life. And you probably already do. Just maintain relationships as best you can. That's great for your mental health. You don't want to feel alone and isolated. That's bad. What else? Your diet, actually. I probably will do a podcast on nutrition at some point. I have friends who are dietitians, that's the word. Dietitians, went to college for it. And dietetics, they went to college for dietetics. They are dietitians. Yeah, words. But your diet affects your mental health and your mood. My old roommate Trevor, oh my gosh, I feel so bad. I felt so bad for this guy. Trevor, he went to college. Went past tense, yeah, me too. But went to college, was living in my house. There were 6 of us in the house. And he was social with everyone. He was going out on the weekends, and he was, partying up. He was a business major, so it was pretty chill. Didn't have class on Fridays kind of thing. But his food, he didn't, eat good food. He basically, all his food consisted of meals he got from the 7-Eleven down the road, and brought back and bought, or microwave, not even the good microwave meals, but the cheap dollar store microwave meals, and he would eat those for weeks on end. And there was a summer, the last summer, where I was at the house because I was working all summer, and in college people go home or people go do their internships, and they're usually not around college, but I was working on campus during the summer, and he was there too, because he didn't have a job, he didn't have a purpose or anything that was pulling him every day, but it was, he's paying rent, might as well live there. That was kind of his mindset. And me and Trevor, prior to this, we didn't really socialize, didn't have the same friend groups, we weren't in the same party scene, and we're kind of, I'm super nerdy, and he's a more really tall basketball sports jock, frat guy, and I'm just not like that, and we're just different. So that summer, he felt very socially isolated. So at the prior point, all his social circles were gone. He didn't have the school academic purpose. I'll get to that. That's the next one, is purpose. He didn't have the school academic purpose, keep his mental health above water, and he was eating crappy food. And he, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but he literally had a mental breakdown, a psychotic break, and was hospitalized for it, because these factors compiled and his mental health deteriorated rapidly. Now, I saw this coming, and I tried my best to help him. And I think a little bit of drug use was in there too. I don't want to completely expose my roommate, but he smoked a lot of weed, put it that way, which usually mellows you out, but it also, for him, it made him paranoid. That didn't help. But anyway, I don't want to hand wave and say it was the weed. It was a lot more than that. So I noticed this, and I taught him. There were 3 times where I taught Trevor how to cook. So I'm a decent cook. Maybe I'll talk about cooking too in a future podcast. But Trevor couldn't cook. So I bought all the ingredients. I went out of my way. I asked him, hey, what do you want to make? And he basically didn't give me anything for the first time. And I said, okay, cool. We're making stir fry, because stir fry is one of the easiest dishes to make. You could make 5 pounds of food in under an hour. It's really affordable, and it's good. It's healthy for the most part. Actually, the only thing that's not healthy necessarily is whatever meat you put in, pretty much. I put in ground pork, which is on the healthier side, but if you use ground turkey or use ground beef, sometimes good ground beef or chicken or whatever, you can make a really healthy stir fry. It's mostly vegetables. It's a very healthy dish. So I'm showing them how to make stir fry. We're just cutting up vegetables basically and throwing them in a wok. Of course, I have a wok. I know how to cook. And he loved it. He was in tears. That one he wasn't crying like he did on the second meal, but that meal he was almost in tears with how good it was, just because he'd been eating crap. Now the second meal we made homemade chicken fettuccine alfredo with broccoli in it, and used farfalle pasta. So I guess not fettuccine, chicken farfalle, the bow tie stuff. Which bow ties and farfalle, same difference. It's just a size thing, but they're cut the same way. Anyway, I made that homemade with him. I was teaching him how to do it, and I kept telling him, I'm like, it's all in the sauce, man. The entire dish is in the sauce. You're boiling the chicken, you're boiling the broccoli, you're boiling the pasta. All the flavor is in the sauce. So we spend 30, 45 minutes on the sauce. And I'm telling him, hey, you gotta watch the water content in this thing. You don't want to boil off too much or it becomes too thick, but you gotta keep it creamy, and you gotta maintain consistency, and you don't want to over-season it. So I'm having him I'm adding spices in, I'm having him add spices in, I'm having him taste test, and then seeing what more it needs, and he's critically thinking about what to put in it, and we make the sauce. Meanwhile, everything's been boiling, and he kind of like, I could tell he was starting to get tired a little bit, but he was also excited. He was like, this is great. So then we spend 30-40 minutes making the sauce, and he's like, okay, what next? Like, we just did the sauce. There's got to be a lot left. And I was like, no. We put it in this pan, we pour the sauce over it, and we mix it together. Or we put the sauce in the pot and mix it all together after we strained it. And he's like, really? That's it? It's like, yep. It's all in the sauce. So we do that. And oh my god, it was good. Like, it's good for me. I like chicken fettuccine Alfredo. And I can't stand store-bought Alfredo. I have to make it every time myself. It's just too sweet or too watery or too tangy from the store. But it's so creamy and so rich when I make it. It has the right amount of garlic in it, the right seasonings. But anyway, Trevor was brought to tears. I have never, like, I've seen him be emotional before, but I've never seen him cry for joy. Like, it caught me way off guard to see this man just in tears over this food he cooked, because he never cooked and no one showed him how to growing up, and it was such a like joy for his mental health. And we cooked one more time together, I think, and then shortly after he had his mental break, and I think it was he realized like life is a lot better than what he had been living, and he was the reason that his life was sucking, and he couldn't handle that. And it's just like, because I was also arguably living alone at the house. You know, his situation was very similar to mine. The difference is I followed these steps and I can make it work. So yeah, food, your diet, that is crucial. That is key to your mental health, your well-being, your happiness, your physical health too. And everything about that. Like food. Focus on your diet. Good food, quality food. And I'm not saying you have to have a 5-course meal or homemade everything. I'm just saying don't eat garbage consistently. You can eat garbage sometimes. You can eat junk sometimes. Like, for me, I love milkshakes. Milkshakes are my happy drink. They're my go-to relief for stress. I love milkshakes. And milkshakes are not healthy. There's... The most you can get is a strawberry milkshake, or maybe a banana cream pie or something, but it's not really that healthy. And I drink those, I'd probably say on average, maybe during the semester when I was in college, maybe once every 10 days to every 2 weeks I had a milkshake for one reason or another. And just milkshakes are my go-to. So it's junk, but it's, you know, it was junk that made me happy, which most junk does, but it was in moderation, not every day and not every meal. It was as a dessert, something in addition to good food, not as a substitute for it. So, nutrition. Next thing, purpose. This also applies to everyone, not just people with ADHD. You must have a sense of purpose or multiple senses of purpose in your life to maintain your mental health. You have to feel like you are doing something meaningful with your life and in your life, even if it's minor, and even if it's you just have to convince yourself, and even if it's a lie, which I don't recommend lying to yourself, but I'd rather you need a sense of purpose. It's absolute necessity. Otherwise, your only sense of purpose is your own entertainment, and that only goes so far. You will burn yourself out and hollow your mind out doing that. So for a lot of people, it's living for others. I mentioned that previously. Your job will give you a sense of purpose. You have a duty while you're working to work, and you get a reward, but there's a purpose there. If you have kids or family that you have to take care of, there's a sense of purpose and duty. If you have a dog or a cat or any animal you have to take care of, you have a sense of duty. If you're a member of some social club, like I have a friend who, she is the vice president of her running club out in Philadelphia, near there. And like, it's a minor thing, but it's her hobby. It's the people she hangs out with, and it gives her a sense of purpose in that leadership role, which again is minor, but it's real. It's purpose. Like, you must have a sense of purpose in your life. You have to be living your life for something, to do something. Don't just aimlessly walk through life. Like, you need purpose. And if you're like me, if you're a Christian, then your purpose is to bring God glory, honor, and praise. And if you're not a Christian, that's okay, but figure out what your purpose needs to be and stick to it. It's also really good to have a purpose that's grounded in something outside yourself, because if it's in yourself, you can always change your mind. If it's outside yourself, it's more difficult to lose your purpose, if that makes sense. So for me, having my purpose is bringing God glory. Like, well, God ain't changing, and He's gonna outlast me. So there's always more work to be done with that. Like, that's just a product of living my life. So I always have purpose, which is good. But I have other purposes too. Like I have younger cousins who, when I was a kid, my cousin Tony there's a 12-year age gap between us, but he would hang out with us whenever we're at our grandparents' house, and he was there, family get-togethers. He'd go to the basement where my brother and I were and spend time with us instead of with the rest of the family. And that really made an impact on me. Part of his purpose was, he might be 17 and I might be 6, but he's spending his quality family time with his family, just the ones that got shoved to the basement that the others are ignoring at that moment. I wasn't ignored in my family. It's just, at that moment, the adults are upstairs, the kids are downstairs. That's how it used to be. Anyway, so now I have like 7, 6, wait, there's 4 there, there's 2 there, there's, 7, yeah. I have 7 little cousins on my dad's side, that are from ages like newborn to 13, just turned, or 12, about to turn 13. And so I'm 11 years older than the oldest one. And it's very similar. I've been super intentional about being a light in their life and being being with them, and pouring out myself for them and pouring out my time for them and spending time with them has been a purpose. I do that end. I take my vacations in a way where I can hang out with my little cousins. This weekend I showed up to one's hockey game, and no one else in the family did except his dad. Like, I was there. I'm at the family game nights when it's just all the little kids and then my uncle and me, and my Anna too, I guess. But sense of purpose, and in that case, it's also family. Gotta have this stuff. I'm going to get my stamps right now from my mom. She asked me to, which, another sense of purpose. Here's some duty. She asked me to do something. I'm doing it. And I didn't want to go all the way out of my way on my ride or drive home from work to go pick up stamps. But I love my mom, and she asked me to do something. I'm going to do it out of love for her, assuming it's a good thing. That helps. That is a benefit. So this is both purpose in that it's another person tasking me with something, but purpose in that I'm living for someone outside myself at the moment. As I'm in the turn lane to turn into a postal office to buy stamps. Oh man, I am not making this light. Oh well. You get to hear my beautiful voice longer. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there are other overarching good things that apply to everyone to improve and maintain and uphold your mental health. I think I hit on the major categories. If I think of something else, I will let you know. But for people like me who have ADHD, and this might apply to people who aren't like me as well, but for people like me who have ADHD, there's some extra caveats. There's some other things we need to do to maintain our mental health, because it's much more sporadic and much more all over the place than most people. Geez, I hope I went to the right spot. I haven't been back here in years. I think there's a post office back here. Yeah, there it is. Okay, good. Found one. Yeah, so for people with ADHD, that's employee parking. I got enter here. There's a few things we have to consider, and I'm going to intro that by saying our minds work differently in the sense that, and I'll explain mental disorders, thinking disorders, and other disorders later, because I've written about them. I'm writing a book. I've been writing a book for years, but I have a whole chapter dedicated to them. And I will explain ADHD at another time, but I'll briefly talk about how it would affect your mental health, and then you'll see why the things we have to do. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. Just unpack those 4 words. Attention deficit. You lack paying attention to things. You struggle. You don't lack it. You struggle with maintaining the ability to focus on tasks, things, education, anything that requires focus. It's very hard for you to do so. That's the attention deficit part. Hyperactivity means you have to constantly be doing something. You have this intrinsic, it's not a desire, it's not a need, it's you will do something. Your body, even if your mind isn't doing something, which it always is, your body will be doing something. You'll be stimming is what it's called. You'll be shaking your legs, you'll be tapping your hands, you'll be fiddling with a toy, you'll be thinking about something far off. You'll just be doing something all the time. It's very hard to stop and slow down if you have ADHD. The disorder part is, this isn't a natural, or it's natural, but it's not a normal thing. And by normal, I mean majority of the population is not like this, is what I mean by normal. So it's also characterized by your thought processes. You typically, because you can't focus, you can't maintain lines of thought for very long. So in my case, and you also have multiple lines of thought. In my case, I have 3 parallel, about on average, 3 parallel lines of thought that I jump between at all times. It's like a train on 3 different railroad tracks. The train is on one track at any given time. That's my train of thought. That's why I use the train analogy. My train of thought is on one track at a time, but I can jump between the tracks, and I'm only ever on one at a time, but there are 3, and I do jump, and I can't help it. That's how ADHD works in your mental. And I'll explain that more at a different time. But now I'm heading home. Oh, I picked up the stamps, by the way. Magic of editing. I just paused the recording and resumed it. But I now have 20 stamps from my mother. And you probably didn't even notice. How could you? Anyway, so for people with ADHD, we constantly need to be doing something, and our minds need to be jumping, and our bodies need to be doing something. So the things that help our mental health are activity that don't require focus. Activities that don't require focus. So an example would be listening to... Ooh, I had to stop suddenly. Probably could have made that light. Listening to music, for most people, helps calm them or soothe them or gets them motivated. For us, it does the same thing, but the type of music that our minds naturally enjoy might be different than our emotional preferences with music. So, regardless of what music you like, if you have ADHD, the music your physiology enjoys is rapid, non-repetitive sound. So there's I almost want to put together a playlist, music for ADHD people by ADHD people, of songs that actually help you focus. An example of this would be classical guitar music is almost always incredibly fast-paced. Like specifically classical guitar with no words. And classical guitar is a completely different instrument than other kinds of guitars. But it's really fast-paced. It's very interesting. It's non-repetitive. Very melodic. And it's great for people with ADHD because it checks the boxes of, I need to be thinking about something in the background constantly, and there's constantly something playing, and there's not words I have to think about. Like, it's in the background. Another thing is random synth noise. So there's videos on YouTube on people with really big synth patches for their keyboards, and they'll just generate noise or waveforms that are semi-random, or sometimes they'll play and interject stuff, but it's background. It is genuinely noise. It's not something that was designed or planned or has significant meaning, but it varies enough to keep you entertained, and it's not obtrusive sound, as in it doesn't cause mental discomfort. So that kind of sound is really good for people with ADHD. That helps our mental health so much. Like, if you're having trouble focusing and you have ADHD, throw on some synth noise, throw on some classical guitar, throw on any really fast-paced, but you can throw it in the background music. If it has words, it's gonna pull your focus. It's just how our brains work. And let's see, what else is good for your mental health? If you specifically have ADHD, I would say finding time for silence. That's crucial. It's hard to do that with your mind. But also being expressive. And this is probably for everyone too. I don't want to just single out ADHD, but being expressive, yeah, here's another example. Being expressive helps your mental health. You don't want to feel caged. You don't want to feel pent up. You don't want to feel as though you can't be yourself. You should be and need to be expressive in order to maintain your mental health. Now, people, that's a very broad thing. You can be expressive in so many different ways. Some people paint. Other people write fan fiction about Sonic the Hedgehog. Some people write books that are actually of merit. Some people just, they wear certain clothes. Others play certain sports. And there's all these things you can do to be expressive. Some people play certain games and get really good at those games. Some people flame other people for being bad at those games. What you actually choose to be expressive in can change your mental health as well, and the mental health of others. Like, don't be toxic, but and don't necessarily be charged in one way or another in a sense of something external. Like, you can be artistic and be expressive, but you could have political overtones and undertones with your art. And that's fine, but that's not necessarily for your mental health. That's more so for your emotional health, which a lot of people mix mental and emotional health. When I guess being expressive is more for emotional, and they do go hand in hand, but they are two separate things. So silence is good for your physical mind. Having purpose, good for your physical mind, but also your emotions. The background sound with ADHD, good for your physical mind, not necessarily your emotions. So I guess there are some differentiations, but your being expressive is good for your creative mind, in the sense that your mind is using itself and it's doing stuff, and it's doing something it considers meaningful, but also good for your emotional health, in the sense of you feel like you're adding value or input to something, and you have an opinion, and that opinion's being expressed. But those are two different things. So if you're doodling, that's good for your mind. That's your mental health. If you're drawing political comics, that's your emotional health. That would be the difference. And so, for the mental health side of things, be expressive. You don't have to necessarily think about it too much, but you got to be expressive. That's great. Do that. I hope I'm almost home. I hope this has genuinely helped you consider patterns and behavior you do and have in your life that will help you live life more fully and have more joy in your life, as well as not feel as overwhelmed or anxious or stressed, but that you feel more alive. And that's kind of the goal with all this. Is these are things that I've incorporated into my life. And if you ever met me in person, you would understand that I'm a very solid person in terms of my mental health. And I hope over the course of these podcasts you'll get to know me as such as well. I'm not often frustrated. I'm not often angry. I am not often overwhelmed. And I'm not often anxious. And that's been a theme of my life since I've put these steps into place. So I hope you, even if you're just hand waving what I say, try it. Like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You're not any worse off than you were before, but you could be so much better off. So yeah, I hope this was useful. I hope that you needed to hear this. Actually, no, I hope you didn't need to hear this. I hope that this message was not a necessity for you. I hope your mental health was fine before this. But if you did need to hear this, I'm glad you did. And I'm proud of you for sticking with it to the end. So feel free to comment if you have other tips and tricks that help your mental health. We can keep this discussion going. But until next time, bye!